When you first start the carnivore diet, it can be quite daunting. There's so many different options. Should you do beef, butter, bacon, eggs? Should you eat dairy? Should you try the lion diet? There are so many different variations of the carnivore diet, and it can be incredibly confusing when selecting which one is best for you. And the thing is, this is not a trivial issue. For many people, if you don't make the right decision, it can seriously ruin your carnivore results. So in today's video, we're going to look at just that. In today's video, you and I are going to walk through all aspects of this question. First, we're going to break down the different types of carnivore, look at the downsides of each, look at the upsides of each, and then finally, we'll make a decision together as to which type of carnivore is best for you. First up, we have the all-inclusive style of carnivore. And this right here is definitely the most popular style of carnivore. As the name suggests, with this style of carnivore, you can eat anything as long as it comes from an animal. This includes all meat products, all dairy, if it comes from an animal, with the exception of honey, because technically speaking, honey is actually bee vomit. When you have honey, you're actually having mainly nectar. It's not really a animal product as say, and because it's super high in sugar, it will mess with your results. So basically any animal product excluding honey. And then obviously not fruit, it's not carnivore. I shouldn't even have to say that, but there are many people who consider themselves carnivores yet have a fruit heavy diet. I have no idea how these people have come to the conclusion that they are carnivore, but fruit is definitely not carnivore. Then we have the BBBE, made famous by Ken Berry himself. This right here is a result of Ken Berry's work, is a very popular style of carnivore for people who are just starting out. On this style of carnivore, you can eat beef, bacon, butter, and eggs. The next popular style of the carnivore diet is the meat and eggs only style. And I'm sure by the name alone, we can all work out what you're consuming on a meat and eggs only diet. Then we have the lion diet, made famous by Michaela Peterson. Now the lion diet is basically the carnivore diet on performance enhancing drugs. On the lion diet, the only things you consume are ruminant meat, water, and salt. And the reason I say the lion diet is basically the carnivore diet on performance enhancing drugs is because when you eat only ruminant meat, you have zero toxins in your diet. You see, the problem with many of the meats that we consume on the carnivore diet is that they are monogastric animals fed an improper diet. A monogastric animal, such as a pig or a chicken, is an animal that only has a single stomach, which is completely different in contrast to a ruminant animal, such as a cow or a lamb, as they have 4 stomachs. So what happens with these monogastric animals is that they're often fed an improper diet full of grains in the form of pellets, which have a number of other toxic ingredients. And so because they only have one stomach, they're not able to break these pellets down. And so essentially what they eat ends up in their flesh. And what we find in these animals is that when we examine the fatty acid content in their fat, it's incredibly high in omega-6 fatty acids, in particular linoleic acid. Although it's not completely accurate, omega-6 fatty acids are referred to as the bad fats. Now, like I said, it's not a completely accurate name because we do need some of them. However, when we have a very high amount of these omega-6 fatty acids, it is not good for us. And you're also not having any dairy. You see, dairy, more often than not, is pasteurized. Now, during this process, the dairy is heated up so the bad bacteria dies and it doesn't go off as quickly. However, during this process, where the dairy is heated, it denatures some of the proteins, which makes them inflammatory to us. In fact, many people find that if they consume raw milk, that their skin is completely clear, but if they consume pasteurized milk, it results in breakouts. So that right there is why the lion diet is going to be better than these other types of diets. However, there are some downsides. Let's look at these. With many of these diets, they become more and more restrictive. Now, obviously, the carnivore diet in itself is quite a restrictive diet in the sense your variety on food is limited. To me, the fact that when I'm hungry, I can eat a large meal till I'm satiated and still stay in fantastic shape, to me is incredibly freeing. However, to many people, especially when you're just starting the carnivore diet, it can feel quite limiting only having certain foods. So even though, like I've just said, the lion diet may be the best version of the carnivore diet, at the start it's probably a good idea to give yourself some variety, as it gives you a much higher likelihood that you'll stick to the diet. So at the start, for many of you, if you can tolerate other things, you may not want to start with the lion diet. However, there are some individuals who need the lion diet. Let's have a look at that. I work one-on-one with many people on the carnivore diet, and I see every single issue. And throughout all the coaching I do, I see 3 main issues that hold everyone back. The first being that they're over-consuming dairy. Dairy significantly hinders weight loss on the carnivore diet, and it does this through a number of mechanisms. For starters, dairy is incredibly addictive. There is a compound in dairy called beta-casomorphin, which quite literally acts as an opioid-like substance to make it so it's addicting. Now, if you're a baby cow trying to grow, this is a good thing. If you're addicted to something and you therefore consume more of it, it means you have more energy and therefore you'll grow more. However, we've all stopped growing up, which means we can only grow wide. A large factor in feeling full is the amount of nutrients we're getting from our food, and dairy is nowhere near as nutrient dense as, say, a steak. So if you consume the exact same amount of energy from dairy as you would with a steak, you'll be considerably less full eating the dairy. And because on the carnivore diet, we eat till we are comfortably stuffed, it means you're going to end up eating a lot more energy and therefore you're going to end up burning a lot less fat. Now, I could go on all day about the different mechanisms that dairy has and how it hinders your weight loss, such as how it blocks hunger hormones. However, this is not a dairy slander video, I'm just making some observations. And the second reason is they're not actually carnivore. A lot of people go on the carnivore diet for an extended period of time. However, when you have a look at what they're actually eating, they're only carnivore like 80-90% of the time, which holds them back considerably. And the third one, which is a lot less common, is that they boredom eat. So anyway, the moral with that blabbering is that dairy, for a lot of people, is going to be problematic, and they may want to look at limiting it, if not avoiding it altogether. Because like I said, it can be addicting. So for some people who have very addictive personalities, it's better just to cut things out completely than to try to moderate them. And then, like I talked about with the monogastric animals, because they have these bad things accumulating in their flesh, in particular in their fat and their skin, for people who are just super sensitive, this can be problematic. I've talked about her many times on this channel just because it's such a great niche example showing the extreme levels that plants can be problematic to some people. However, Michaela Peterson, daughter of Jordan Peterson, if she eats pork or anything other than ruminant meat, it results in her anxiety and depression symptoms just becoming incredibly problematic for her. And the same goes for people who have autoimmune conditions or terrible joint pain. For the vast majority of people, just cutting out all plants will resolve these issues, but there is a small subset of the population that actually needs the lion diet to completely resolve all of their issues. So I've looked at the bad things, let's look at the good things. The all-inclusive, obviously it has massive variety. And then the beef, butter, bacon, eggs, and the meat and eggs versions also do have a significant amount of variety, but they don't have the dairy issue. And then the lion diet, obviously it's the most restrictive diet, which as I've talked about is a bad thing. However, the lion diet genuinely seems to be a miracle diet. Some of the stories I've heard of people who have gone on the lion diet and reversed all these things that, aren't meant to be reversed. People with lifelong chronic depression, chronic anxiety, nothing changes in their life, but they switch over to this diet and they just feel incredible. Now, carnivore does the same thing, but like I talked about, some people need the lion diet for that. It's genuinely incredible, some of the stories you hear with the lion diet. So that right there is the advantage of the lion diet, is that it just seems to work wonders regardless as to what issue people seem to have. So, which style is best for you? If you're starting out, I think a great place to start is the meat and eggs version with a little bit of optional dairy. And when I say a little bit, I mean a little bit. You want to use dairy like you would a sauce. Let's say you'd usually have a steak with a bit of tomato sauce on the side, or ketchup, as you American folk call it. Think about how much ketchup you'd put on the side and put that amount of cheese on top. Like I talked about throughout this video, as long as you actually stay strict to carnivore and you're not eating all day just for the sake of eating, you will 100% over a long enough time horizon achieve all of your weight loss goals, pending you're not overeating on the dairy. So by eating this way, you will guarantee that you achieve your results. If you eat this way for 30 days, I can guarantee you that your life will change. Whether it be you lost 20 pounds or your energy levels have just skyrocketed, there will be at least one tangible change which makes your life considerably better in some aspect. If you are someone though who is a highly addictive personality, honestly, I would cut out dairy completely. It is incredibly addictive, and because 99.9% of people have sugar addictions, if you're doing things like drinking a glass of milk, all it's going to do is re-trigger those reward pathways and you're just going to start craving other things. What's an interesting fact is that if you cannot consume sugar for 14 days, your brain forgets how much pleasure it got from it and it no longer craves it. So like I said, if you are someone who's got a super addictive personality, I wouldn't consume dairy so you can get that 14-day reset and stop thinking about the sugar. So when you're starting out, have whatever meat you feel like, have eggs whenever you feel like, and just keep doing that. Over time, the meat starts tasting better and better as your taste buds sort of reset because they're not destroyed from all the poison you've been eating in the past. However, I'll tell you what happens to nearly every single person on carnivore. Over time, ruminant meat starts tasting better and better to them. Like I talked about earlier, because ruminant meat, they have these multi-chambered stomachs and they eat their species-appropriate diet, more often than not, ruminant meat, the majority of what they eat, if not all of what they eat, is grass or other leaves like they're supposed to eat. So their flesh ends up very pure. But on top of this, it's also the most nutrient dense type of meat. So when you eat this, because it's just perfect for your body, it contains all the good, very, very little of the bad, and you just feel incredible. Your body remembers this incredible sensation it gets from eating it, and it sends you the feedback mechanism in the sense that it just starts tasting better and better. So most people start consuming all meats, and then over time they find that chicken, it just doesn't taste quite the same. Maybe you really like turkey or pork at the start. However, over time, you just want more and more of the ruminant meat. And if you're wondering about coffee, I made a video the other day which talks about the 4 types of people who definitely want to avoid coffee. Anyway, that concludes today's video. Thanks for watching. See you guys next time.